it's very important to have a technical degree, whether it's computer science, artificial intelligence, mechanical engineering, chemistry, bio. I think that's important. And what I would say to people who want to aspire to get into this, be as good as you can at your technical specialty. And then you look for opportunities in the law.
Thank you, Tom, for accepting our invitation and be on LawSikho and Super Lawyer YouTube channel. He is having more than 48.5 years of experience in intellectual property and is a very well-known figure in United States and worldwide. I would like to start the interview by asking him the most pertinent question. Why and how did you decide to do law? And it will be obviously very highly beneficial for our learners to know how actually you entered the field of intellectual property law and made your space, and what aspects of the practice kept you engaged for so many years, almost 5 decades now.
Well, thank you. I got into law because I was no good at chemistry. I used to blow things up in the lab, which made the lab instructors very angry with me. I got good grades because I could memorize, but I was lousy. So I thought, what could I do? So I took, it's called in the US the LSAT. You take this test. And basically the test cheated for me because they had this section on atomic physics, which you had to read it, close the book, and answer the questions. Well, at the time I was studying atomic physics at my school, the University of Utah, and so I aced that part of it. And that put my score way, way up, probably far higher, Divya, than it should have been. And that was good enough so I could get into law schools. And then I knew about Duke University because they had a very good basketball team. And I had watched them on TV. I thought, oh, it'd be fun to go live in North Carolina. So my wife and I decided we would go live in North Carolina and go to Duke. And then when I got to Duke, I further realized all the students were smarter than I was. Doesn't take much. And so I thought, well, wait a minute, what can I do that they can't do? And I realized I was the only student at Duke Law School who was STEM, who had a science and engineering degree. So I thought, well, I need to look into this. So I found out about patent law. And then these are very, very primitive times, no internet. I got this book called Martindale Hubbell. I looked up all the patent law firms in Washington and began to write letters to them saying, oh, I'd love to come up and be a clerk for you in 1975 summer, because I started school in 74. And this little 20-person firm called Finnegan, Henderson, and Faribault and Garrett said, yeah, we'll interview you. So I had an interview. They accepted me. And so they said, well, can you come up in December and go to American University for a semester, and then you can work here for 8 months. And I did. And so they made me an offer, and then I stayed there. I stayed there for about 47 years until I retired on March 31st. Then on April 1st, I had this amazing opportunity to help build the life science practice at Marbury Law Group. I had trained their life science leader at Finnegan. So I retired on March 31st, and I began my second career at Marbury on April 1st. So I think, Divya, there was no retirement. So that's how it happened.
So inspirational. I feel like you never retired, and that is an inspiration for not only lawyers, for everyone here. So my next question arises from that. I would first like to understand that you have got so many awards, and how have you stayed humble with all that you have been given? Let's say IP Social Justice Lifetime Achievement Award, then you have been Titan of the Bar also, you have been given IIM Life Sciences Hall of Fame, you have been to our Hall of Fame also. How have you kept yourself humble, and how has this experience in specifically life sciences intellectual property shaped your perspective? Because I keep on seeing that you nurture your proteges, I would say, in the similar field. How have you picked them, and how have you kept yourself so humble for so long?
Well, Divya, if you're really stupid, like I am, it's easy to be humble. It's natural, you know? And so basically I've never had a problem with that. And I love intellectual property because it's something different every time. Well, it has to be novel and non-obvious, right, to be a patentable invention. And I get to work in the pharma space, and I represent the innovative pharma companies, and they're always doing interesting things. They're inventing new biologics, new molecules that help people. You know, I'm old enough that I take some prescription pharmaceuticals, for which I'm very grateful. And so I don't know, Divya, to me, it's a perpetual challenge. And I finally decided that I will retire in the year, it's 2066. I'll be 115 years old and I'm done. At that point, you'll have to interview somebody else because this is really fun. And I don't play golf. I don't, really have anything I'm good at other than having a good time in patent law. So this I will do until the day I die.
And how do you pick your proteges, the students that you pick, the way you nurture them? How have you picked all throughout? Because as you said, that when you retired from Finnegan, you moved to Marbury because you had nurtured the person who had started this. So what was the connection? How did you build it? Because obviously networking and connections are something which are very predominant in our legal profession. So I would love to understand that aspect as well.
Well, I would too. Basically, Divya, one of the things that's fundamentally changed my ability to be known is LinkedIn. I don't do Facebook. I don't do TikTok. I don't do any of that stuff because I don't understand it. But I do LinkedIn. And I just did a post on the select case. They denied rehearing en banc. Divya, it turns out people are very interested in this. In 2 days, I've had over 6,000 views. That's a lot for me. Usually I get like, 1,500, maybe 2,000. But this is just amazing to me. The ability to spread the word electronically. And I think now I have, 2,500 followers. So it's enough of a group that when I post something, and as you can tell looking at me, I don't have any pretty picture to post. So I just talk about the law. I talk about the law, and that's good enough because people are interested in that. And then with the people I work with, I'm human. I do the best I can. Sometimes I lose patience, but I try not to. But the most important resource I think one has are the lawyers you work with and patent agents, and you want to build them. You want to help them progress. And the person who's the head of life sciences here at Marbury, Michelle O'Brien, she came out of Georgetown Law School, 1989, extraordinarily bright, far smarter than I am. And so I got 8 years to work with her and to try to nurture and develop her. And I think she's so smart, Divya. She would have done just fine without me. But wow, I'm sure proud of her. The way she does incredible legal work, the way she handles clients. One of my all-time best, shall we say, proteges or trainees. And it gives me great satisfaction. I guess over the years between Finnegan and now at Marbury, I trained hundreds of people. Maybe it's even 1,000. I mean, after all, it's been 50 years. But it's very satisfying to me to see these people go off and progress and do great things. I really get a big kick out of that.
You must be an amazing guru as well because the way you talk about your proteges, your students, your followers, it's like you find that exact word is kick in this particular thing which you have been doing for so long. You actually have worked in so many major pharmaceutical matters. So, have you ever faced any challenges which you would like to share so that we here can understand how we can majorly find the connect? Like you have worked on drugs like Kaylee Deco or Chembase, then Tech Fidera, all of them are registered and trademarked. So, all of these works which you have addressed, if you could share some strategies which helped you win these cases of pharmaceutical matters, it will be very helpful.
Oh, absolutely. So now this is very important to me because these pharmaceutical companies, I suspect it's the same in India. A lot of the value of a pharmaceutical company are the patents they have, particularly US patents, because at least up until now, prices aren't regulated. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a politician. I don't like any politicians. So I don't know what the politicians will do. It's beyond me. I have no idea. But what I've tried to do is over the years build strong patent portfolios for these pharma companies that they can defend. They've got to be able to defend them. First of all, they got to get it through the patent office. And then they've got to be able to defend them in the AIA post-grant proceedings, like IPRs and PGRs. And then I do mostly small molecule work. And so then there's the ANDA challenges, the Hatch-Waxman. Well, Hatch is actually dead, but I knew him. I knew him well. I taught his children in early morning school. And so I knew Hatch well. But basically, I'm trying to look down the road, Divya. I'm trying to say, well, what can we do to make sure these patents are valid, enforceable, and infringed? And I think one of my favorite stories is for many years, I was frustrated because I would obtain formulation claims for pharma clients, could never enforce them. They had too many limitations. And so because they had too many limitations, no one infringed them. So, we get our paragraph 4 letter. I'd turn to the process formulation part and I'd shake my head and I'd tell the client, nope, no, we're not enforcing this patent. We have no basis for enforcing this patent. This is a very good non-infringement argument the generic manufacturers come up with. We're not going to do this. And so I came up with an idea. And the idea I came up with was based on, at the time, Section 112.6 from the 52 Act. Now, the 52 Act was written by Judge Rich, who was a CCPA and then Federal Circuit, and also the lesser known person these days, P.J. Federico. Now, Federico was the chair of the Board of Appeals it used to just be the Patent Office. It wasn't Patent and Trademark Office. So Federico and Rich wrote the 52 Act. And then when I started in 1975 at Finnegan, I did this paper, and there were no LinkedIn's, there was no electronic publication. So I gave a talk at an AIPLA meeting, and I put copies of the paper at the back of the room. And that's how one communicated. Well, the paper got into the hands of P.J. Federico. Either he was there or he had one of his lawyers there. So the next day I get a call from P.J. Federico. I mean, I felt like Moses talking to God. I mean, this was a big, big deal. I said, oh, yes, sir. What can I do for you? He said, don't call me sir. Okay, yes, Mr. Federico. What can I do for you? He said, your article's good. That made me feel good. He said, we can improve it. I said, I'm all ears. So he was my very first mentor. And I thought this was amazing. He was with another law firm. He had no monetary advantage that I could see to take an interest in me, but he did. And so in the 52 Act, one of the new parts he put in was 112.6, which is means plus function. Now, Divya, that was 1952. From 1952 until about 10 years ago, nobody ever thought of applying means plus function to pharmaceutical cases. I thought, wait a minute. If I could do means plus function for pharmaceutical cases, the claim wouldn't be so narrow because I would link it up with a linking table and the claims would cover what I linked to and equivalence. What kind of equivalence? Literal equivalence, not doctrinal equivalence, but literal equivalence. And I thought, this is the greatest idea since sliced bread. And it went nowhere. I had all these clients mad at me because I would tell them to do it, patent office, give them the big thumbs down. And that went on for 7 or 8 years, didn't you? And then finally, we cracked the egg and somebody allowed one. And then more people allowed them. And so now they're not commonplace. In fact, in the Zencor case, I'll talk about in a minute, Federal Circuit or somebody called means plus function pharmaceuticals exceedingly rare, meaning I need to be a better missionary for means plus function. But what happened was it started to work. And then clients got really excited about it for the same reason I was, that now they could claim formulations as well as other things. Use means for, and even though my colleagues in the mechanical electrical said, no, don't do that. The claims are too narrow. Not in pharmaceuticals. Because in pharmaceutical, all we have to do is get a claim that reads on the approved drug substance or the approved drug product. That's all you need. And as I put in a LinkedIn post on the Lundbeck case, you only have to win on one claim of one patent. And if you do, you're in great shape. And so basically, people started to use it. I talk about it all the time. And then along came the dreaded Zencor case. Now, Zencor, they claim they got the idea from me because I write so much on LinkedIn. So they presented a mean plus function claim. PTAB rejected it. And I thought, my own view, I don't represent Zencor, the most foolish rejection I'd ever seen. They said, no, your 112F claim is no good because you didn't describe every equivalent. And they were citing the functional cases like Amgen versus Sanofi and Bexalta. And I thought, that's crazy. That was the whole reason Federico and Rich put in 112F was so it would be kind of a, shall we say, a savings clause to be able to take these claims that otherwise would never be infringed and save them. And so I have just excoriated the Zencor decision in my LinkedIn. I've called it odious on this part of written description. There's other parts that they may win on. I don't know. I'm not involved in the case, but that would destroy 112F. And what I'm saying and what's getting traction on LinkedIn, I'm saying, wait a minute. If the Federal Circuit were to affirm this decision, the PTAB would have overruled 112F. Now, you can't do that in the US. A PTAB can't overrule a statute. They can interpret a statute, but they can't overrule it. And so evidently, Divya, that got traction. Because lo and behold, the patent office, the case was on appeal at the Federal Circuit. The patent office went to the Federal Circuit and said, we want this back. We want you to remand this case. Oh, Zencor was upset because they had the C delay and they'd accrued 800 days of C delay. And if it got remanded, they lose it all. Well, the Federal Circuit didn't care. They're not always the most sensitive to patentees. So they remanded it just recently. And I posted on that. It was a big deal, and all these people have responded. But now it's back at PTAB. Now, what I sincerely hope, and I keep blasting every chance, now that I have a big following, every chance I get. I mean, I'm not Dennis Crouch, but I have quite a following for a obscure person like myself. And so every chance I get, I blast Zencor. And I'm hoping, and I know that judges at the Federal Circuit look at my LinkedIn, because I have the kind of LinkedIn, I can see who looks at who makes an impression. And many of these are PTAB judges. So I'm hoping the PTAB judges, also a Federal Circuit law clerk, just looked at my post the other day. So I'm hoping that PTAB will say, oh, that was a mistake. So whatever they do in remand, I hope they'll say, well, we withdraw this crazy written description and we'll focus on sufficiency of disclosure and obvious type double patent. That, Divya, would make me so happy because I don't get paid a cent by Zencor. I have no financial interest. But if I can have an influence to get a decision that I am confident is clearly wrong, if I can get that eliminated without ever having to take anybody's money to do that, I'll be very happy.
Oh my God. There's so much to ask in patents alone. The way you are speaking, it seems like there are volumes of books which can be written on just the experiences that you have gone through. So I also used to learn these patent acts even for US. I used to read about AIA, pre-AIA regime, and then when America Invents Act came and all the things changed. What kind of changes did you see, because you were not happy about the things which were happening because of these kind of issues that were arising even after having the kind of legislation in 112F? What kind of changes did you see in pharma industry itself and the kind of infringement issues that started coming along? How did you work in the court? Because obviously pharma lobby is also way too big, and obviously, as you said, politicians are also involved. There are so many things. So how did you go ahead and flawlessly did all this and survive the whole regime for so many years? What was your inspiration and the kind of motivation that you had? I guess that also you have passed on to your students and to your learners. So what was your calling then? And what changes have you seen for so long? And what is your prediction for further?
Well, you asked the right person. I'm not a total fan of the AIA. I thought they did a terrible job, particularly on the issue of on sale, because all the legislative history was saying, oh, well, okay, there's no on sale, there's no offer for sale, unless the substance of what is on sale, offered for sale, is made public. So I went to the patent office, I had a case for a client, and I called it, I had to have a fancy name, Divya. I called it the Jedi Master Mixer. And I went to the patent office. I said, I'm here to tell you about the Jedi Master Mixer. Oh, they looked at me like I was an idiot, which is probably true. But I said, well, let me tell you what it is. And I said, here we've got these claims, and here's the facts. There was what one would think might have been a offer for sale, but it's not effective here because the offer for sale, the public didn't know the substance of what was offered for sale. So I said, the legislative history says that is not disabling. And so I got the patents allowed. The case was litigated by a wonderful litigation firm called Paul Hastings. If any of you need to litigate drug patents in the United States, go to Paul Hastings. Ask for Brooks Wexler or Eric Dittman or Melanie Rupert. These people are amazing. So they took my patents, and the client was called Helson. They're out of Lugano, Switzerland, which, by the way, Lugano, Switzerland is a beautiful place. You can get there from Milano. It's just across the border. It's beautiful. So they took the case to New Jersey, and in a 142-page opinion, the judge agreed with me and agreed with the brilliant lawyers from Paul Hastings that no, there's not a problem here. Well, I knew I was in trouble because I'd been on a panel out in Seattle for AIPLA, and I had at that time the chief judge of the federal circuit, and he said, well, we didn't have anything to do with the AIA. It can't be making all these changes. I thought, uh-oh, watch out. And so Helson won the case at the district court. And then they went to the federal circuit, and the federal circuit said, no way. You know, the law never changed, because if it had changed, they would have made the statute more clear. And those who claim great credit for the statute, I fault them, because I think they had a chance to make it clear and they did not. In legislative history, Divya, in the US, I don't know how it is in India, legislative history doesn't get you very far. So they lost at the federal circuit and on to the Supreme Court. So here my claims are going up to the Supreme Court of the United States. And there's Paul Hastings and another Supreme Court expert. They're handling the case. And they made a great argument. But the problem was we were joined supposedly to support us. The government sent a lawyer. Now, I don't know how it is in India, but my biased view, my anti-political view is anytime the government says, we're here to help you, watch out, because it never works out that way. They're never helpful. So this guy gets up there, and astonishing to me, one of the justices said, might have been Kavanaugh, I don't remember. He said, well, if the big change that Helson said happened, wouldn't it be written in the statute? And the lawyer said, yes. Well, I knew we lost. So I knew we lost the case. And so I said, it's over. We are losing the case. Well, not only did my claims lose, I lost at the Supreme Court 9-0. There wasn't a single justice that would vote for my claims. And of course, I blame it not on myself, not on Paul Hastings. They were brilliant, but I blame it on this government lawyer who, I don't know, we would have been better off had he been ill that day and not been able to show up. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. So I guess that is a dramatic failure, Divya, that I've had in the AIA. I think it's unfortunate. It's not going to ever change. That was a Supreme Court decision. And somebody said, well, why don't you get the Congress to revise the AIA? I couldn't stop laughing. These people can't even agree whether the sky's blue in the United States. It's very as you know, and maybe it's this way in India, I don't know, but it's very divided in the United States. Politically, it's one party, it's the other party, and that seems to be their main interest, is being divided. And so I said, no, that's not going to work. So then my next big initiative is there's a case called Enroll Select, and I posted on that this week because Dennis Crouch said, I know Dennis, he said that the Federal Circuit denied rehearing en banc. So I did a post on that the morning he said that. And Divya, I have over 6,000 views on that post. And what I basically said was, I told you so. I told you the Federal Circuit wasn't going bonk. And Dennis said, well, maybe the Supreme Court will do something. Oh, Dennis, careful what you ask for. I'm terrified the Supreme Court would take the case and make it even worse. So I just don't have any confidence in these people. They're not like you and me, decades and decades and decades of experience in patent law. And so what I came up with, which I think was a novel idea, I came up with the idea, well, the way to eliminate the select problem is to do a contingent terminal disclaimer before the potential obviousness double patenting reference expires. And son of a gun, somebody listened to me. Somebody did that. Somebody filed one. And I think it was the law firm Wolf Greenfield. They did a post. They found this somehow. And I really respected them. They published the contingent terminal disclaimer, but they published it in a redacted form, which I thought was good. So they didn't let out what the case number was, stuff. So I read it and I thought, whoa, that's a great argument. I'm trying to remember. Things are happening so fast in the US patent law. Somehow I think it may be that petition for the continued terminal disclaimer was denied. Now, I don't know what the people that filed are going to do. Are they going to push that to the district court? Are they going to attack that? I can think of any numerous good reasons why the contingent terminal disclaimer should be accepted. But what I wrote in my post 2 days ago, and what Divya seems to have captured the patent bar's imagination, I said, well, this would take a very simple amendment to the US patent law. The 35 USC section 253 is an A and a B. I think B is the one that matters, covers terminal disclaimers. I said, all Congress would have to do is add 3 words, which says disclaimer, including a contingent terminal disclaimer. Maybe that's 4 words, I don't know. But that would solve the problem. Now, I don't have any political pull because clearly since I despise both parties, it's not going to go anywhere for me. Maybe somebody will pick that up. But I thought, Divya, that would be a very simple change. And it would be a change. But again, it's Congress. And, I don't know what the competing interests are. There'd probably be people very opposed to that. And I don't know if you know this. It's an election year this year in the United States. We're having 2 people run for president. And as near as I can tell, one party says the president is, mentally non-cognitive. And so now the other party says the front runner, who happens to be a man named Donald Trump, a former president, they say he's mentally non-cognitive. Now, being cynical, Divya, I say, well, wait a minute. If he's mentally non-cognitive, he qualifies to be president. We don't know where this crazy stuff will go. But I can tell you that every House of Representative member, all 35 stand for re-election. So I sincerely doubt in an election year, they'd want to take a position on contingent terminal disclaimers that might be controversial. Divya, they might lose votes. And so I'm cynical about that. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a fascinating issue. And that's what I love about the law. All these issues come along and they're so interesting, the issues, and they have real world ramifications, particularly in my field of pharmaceuticals. Both the Zencor case is highly relevant, as is Select. But the thing about Select that has caught the imagination of the patent bar is it applies to all technologies. Obvious type double patenting is mechanical, electrical, computer, chemical, life sciences. It's the broader thing. So it shows that my post I did on the Zencor, having rehearing denied, had 1,200 views. The post I did on Select, as I said, has over 6,000 views. And so I can see what people are interested in. But to me, Divya, that's what keeps me going every day. So interesting. The issues are very, very interesting. And I think we should all be very happy that we picked patent law, whether it's Indian patent law, international patent law, US patent law, because these are living, breathing subjects that things change. And I do a lot of teaching. And one of the reasons I do all the teaching is to stay up, but you can go to a webinar and somebody tells you what their view is. That's good. But I like to basically do slides and present because then I have to think about it deeply. Plus, when I present to an audience, I get questions. People ask things I haven't thought of. And so it's totally selfish. I do this so that I can be a better lawyer. So anyway, I am very, very bullish on the subject of patent law and think it is. I just can't imagine I would have ended up in a better profession for me than being a US patent lawyer.
My goodness, you have almost 5 decades of experience. So yes, you are all about patent laws. And patent laws are something I feel like you just love talking about. There are so many things. I also have been learning that, but I'm very, very small in this industry. It's like not even a decade now. So I can understand the kind of passion you are speaking about. Here, I cannot resist myself, but I would like to ask you about when the major change after AI Act came. If I'm not wrong, it was 2013, and your regime changed from first to invent to first inventor to file. So when that came into picture, how did you work out the glitches which may have occurred? And what was your negotiation tactics then for pharma companies? Because obviously, if all these changes have happened, it must have affected the industry of patent laws as well. So what was your view at that time and how did you make the shift? I would love to hear that.
Well, when President Obama signed the law in, I think it was 2011, you're correct, I got interested. I don't care about pending legislation. It doesn't matter. Until there's a law passed and the President of the United States signs it, it doesn't mean anything to me. So I got involved, and so I went on a nationwide blitz in, I guess, late 2011, 2012. Any audience that would let me in, I talked to them about AIA and what was happening, how these things would change. Now, we are looking at this over, it's over 10 years later now, AIA, and I don't know that I've seen such a big change. I had a very active interference practice, and AIA pretty much did away because that was all, first to invent, not first inventor to file. And the thing was, it might have been a big practice for me, but Divya, in the overall scheme of things, it wasn't a big deal. And so interferences came, interferences went. Occasionally, some rare bird that is still subject to an interference. I think people thought, oh, no interferences will be terrible. I thought, well, they don't read the statistics because statistically, there's a very, very small percentage of cases that go into interference. And so I thought one of the big changes was on 103. Pre-AIA, 103 was at the time of invention. Now, 103 AIA is at the time of filing. So there's generally a gap there between the time of invention and time of filing. I thought that might make a big difference. I've seen very little difference in the cases where that made a big difference. So in a way, I see the AIA as, well, a little bit cynical, as you know, almost a big nothing burger. I don't know really what it accomplished, and it took probably 10 years to get through. And I've always thought anything that takes 10 years is probably a bad idea. Because if people take 10 years to decide something, it's probably a bad idea. And so we shall see historically. And I could yet be wrong. There could be big new events coming down the pike that will indicate why AIA is a sensational change. I just, sitting here today, Divya, I don't see them. I haven't seen them in my practice. I don't see them. Now, you have to be careful. You have to make sure that when you make your arguments, you say, yes, the 103 is judged at the time of filing for a AIA case, not at the time of the invention. So I think you have to mind your P's and Q's and, see what happens there. I think one thing that was a tremendous change, though, was the AIA post-grant proceedings. IPRs and PGRs have exploded. I've done a bunch of those. And the idea was that would be quicker, less expensive. These were the big advantages. And I think that's basically been true. And the PGRs, I don't understand this. PGRs aren't doing very well. I think people are afraid of a greater estoppel. But the IPRs, big numbers of IPRs filed. Firms have based their entire practices now on the IPRs and become very good at them. I think of the Armand and Wilson firm out in California. I think that's all they do. Phillips and Lawrence is another firm. That's all they do. And they're very good at it. So that was a big change. And it kind of moved a lot of the district court litigation, which might cost $5 million of attorney fees, to the PTAB, which in my experience, they aren't cheap, Divya. You're probably still looking at $500 to $1 million, but that's better than $5 million. And you do get it decided by PTAB judges who are highly skilled. One of the qualifications to be a PTAB judge is to be an expert in patent law. So at least you're getting people who understand it, who didn't have degrees in English or sociology or something like that. So I think maybe that's the biggest change, is the IPRs and not so much the PGRs. Now, one thing I thought would take off was AIA put in supplemental examination. And I'm very much involved in defending, uncovering inequitable conduct. And so basically, I thought the supplemental examination was the idea. You go to the patent office, you lay out all the facts that you concealed, and you say, well, here's all the facts, here's my claims, they're still patent. And if the supplemental examination is rejected, you're golden. You made the arguments, you essentially got everything through the car wash, and if it's accepted, then you go through re-examination. Now, I've looked at a lot of these cases that have gone, the supplemental examination has gone into re-exam. They don't come out terribly for the patentee. There are cases where the patentees come out just well, and so I thought that would be used a whole lot. It's not, Divya. And corporate people tell me, oh, well, we don't use supplemental examination because we were required to make too many admissions. And so that's so interesting. I look at the numbers. I'm giving a talk for AIPLA on February 8th on inequitable conduct. And the numbers of supplemental examination are going down. And it seems to be a pronounced downward slope of the curve, a negative slope, not a positive slope. So we shall see where this all ends up. But all I know is a lot of people have done well with RPRs. I think they hired 200 PTAB judges, including one of my sons-in-law. And so this is good income and good jobs for these people. And they were very happy about it. So I certainly have vested interest in hoping that IPR and PGR is here to stay. We'll see what happens long term, but I don't look for any legislative solutions for the reasons I stated. It's an election year. Congress can't agree on anything. I guess it would depend. Does one party have a clear majority so they could dictate? There was a party 4 years ago, had a clear majority in both the House and Senate, and still couldn't do anything. They were so divided. So we'll see. Anyway, those are my views on that.
So, as you have mentioned twice, that this is super election year, almost 60% of the world is going into elections this year, including US and India. So many regimes are going to change. And that brings me to the question, most important one, which I would love to hear from you, your perspective, because you have been teaching in US law schools as well as China. How have you seen the kind of exposure that you have after teaching or between the teaching assignments, the kind of international perspective that may have influenced your approach while you were teaching in China or while you were teaching in US? That approach, how has it impacted your intellectual property, your patent law understanding in terms of two jurisdictions? And what challenges or kind of opportunities did you see when you see at the global IP landscape? Because China and US are almost neck to neck when it comes to patent filing. So how was it different from US, and what did you see as challenge or the opportunity for the two law school students from two jurisdictions?
Well, my experience has been very helpful to teach in China. I've taught a lot in Europe. I lived in Europe from 1993 to 1998. I founded my former firm's office in Brussels, Belgium. I think worldwide is important. Now, for me, Divya, most of the pharma companies, the big market's the US. There's no price control and they can charge what they think are reasonable prices. We could have a debate about that, but that's what they think. And of course, I think some politicians are trying to stop that now and lower the price of prescription drugs. And, I'm not a politician. I don't know where that's going to go. I have no idea. But I think the more you know about the jurisdictions is you know enough to inquire. I mean, I've got really good friends in India who I've met through the AIPLA and IPO. And when we have clients that start moving into India with innovative drugs, I'm going to them. I say, hey, you're an Indian lawyer. You know about this. Tell me about this. What can we do? Or even a very important patent application might even run it by them. Same in China. Okay, how does this sound from a Chinese point of view? I think, I mean, I don't ever believe in my lifetime until I die in 2066. I don't ever believe that there will be global patents. I don't think so. There's too many vested interests. But maybe the day will come, Divya. Maybe a day will come when we have global patents, which I think would be good because then there'd be one system, one way to go, and your patent application could be written essentially on a worldwide basis. Whereas right now, I think you have to do some real special things to a US patent application to make it of any value in China. India, I don't know as well, but I'm getting to know it. Europe, there are different rules. And so you maybe have to have almost like different parts of the application. One is directed to Chinese considerations, one is directed to European, one is directed to Indian. I'm a big believer in education. I think the more you know, the better able you are to represent your clients. That's how I see it.
Wow. So you have seen almost all the world's patent legislations and have understood the comparison also. That will take, I guess, many volumes of recordings just to explain your understanding. But I guess we are running out of time. And I would like to move forward and understand that for individuals who are aspiring to enter this particular field of intellectual properties law, especially patent laws, what kind of advice would you offer, like you being from science background and I'm also from science background? So considering the dynamic nature of the practice which is around patent laws, what kind of diverse range of technologies do you see are currently involved? What kind of future predictions you have, as you are saying that you'll be here till 2066? So we are expecting a lot of changes. What kind of focus the individuals who are aspiring to enter this field should pick from today and probably plan their future or plan their career around this?
Well, I think it's, to me, my personal bias is unless you're going to do patent litigation, it's very important to have a technical degree, whether it's computer science, artificial intelligence, mechanical engineering, chemistry, bio. I think that's important. And what I would say to people who want to aspire to get into this, be as good as you can at your technical specialty. And then you look for opportunities in the law. Now, do I believe that everybody needs to be a US lawyer? No. We are built in the US. We have a lot of people called patent agents. They didn't go to law school, but they're highly skilled and they're very useful, I think, in moving the ball forward. And I don't know exactly how India is, whether people have to get degrees. I know Japan, there's one class that are the lawyers, another class that are like the patent attorneys. But I say find out what your jurisdiction has to offer. And if you want to do this, go for it. Go for it, because I just think, Divya, it's not going away. I mean, technology gets more and more complex. Artificial intelligence is a totally exploding area that I think will have to be dealt with, maybe immediately, but certainly within the next 5 years. So I think the opportunity is there. And if you want to do it, that's really what you desire, I think then each listener will find a way, best for her, best for him, to integrate into the field.
Wow, rightly said. Obviously, the background definitely matters. But what I have seen in the new learners, the learners which I interact with here, they are eager to learn things, but there are many times where they cannot get probably the right guidance. That's what we are trying to provide at LawSikho. Here, we are trying to give a practical overview of what is happening around the legal regime, because it's a legal ethic institution. And the things which we have seen over here is, when you are in law school, especially I'm talking about Indian context, that you do not get exactly the kind of practical views or practical issues that you will be facing. Here we get to learn a lot in theoretical aspects, but in practical, like you said, it's absolutely important to be vigilant. And when you were in your first year law, as you said that you reached out to Finnegan and you got selected in your very first year to intern with them, that can be one way of doing things, and that can help people reach to more people who can guide these new learners. And that is something which we also try and inculcate in the students and learners we get to meet at this stage. Now, since we have heard so much from you, we would like to know a little bit about your amazing personal life, and how did you find the balance between the kind of professional life, the busy professional life you have been. How did you balance it? What was it like to have the personal and professional life together? And what was the best way that you can suggest that we can be busy and be at home as well? How does that work?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I think I have not done a great job of balancing. But what I did is, almost 50 years ago, I married a person whose whole desire in life was to stay home and have kids. And so she made it very clear to me, my job was to go out and make the money, pay the taxes, keep track of finances, and stay out of jail. And she would do everything else. And she has. So that, Divya, that's a very poor excuse. But that's how I balance mine. The whole family is run by my wife, and she's the CEO of the family. I do all the finances. Then I go off and do my law thing. So you'll have to get another person on who can do a better job of explaining it. I'm a really bad example.
So we need to have better partners, as you got lucky. And we need to interview her to understand how she managed all this, your busy life and her life at home. Because obviously, if you have the perfect partner, the best partner, you will have both lives very perfect, and you will have a very successful career also, as you are an example of that. But what would be your suggestion in case first generation lawyers and attorneys want to enter the field, and they really look forward to having mentors? Because whosoever I interview, I get to understand that you need to have mentor, you need to learn to network. What suggestions do you have for them, so that we can try and inculcate that in our learners as well?
Well, again, I don't know that I'm an expert at that, but it seems to me mentors are very important. Federico was my first mentor. I'll never forget that. I'll forever be grateful for the interest he took in me. And what I'm kind of hoping is, I'm hoping that now, with the amazing things that are available to us, in my case, LinkedIn, I hope I'm mentoring people. I post on Settling Patent Law, seems at least once a week and sometimes twice. I'm hoping that's mentoring. I'm hoping that, because it doesn't matter where in the world you are, as I understand it, you can get LinkedIn and you can look and see what I've done and what I'm suggesting and what my analysis is. And that may be helpful. But if locally, if you can find a person like Divya or another person in the patent profession in India that you have taken interest in you and have them to be able to bounce things off, that is ideal. I am the product of excellent mentorship. I hope I've given excellent mentorship. And so I just encourage people, look for and find mentors.
Thanks for that. Our institution, our company, it is currently nurturing students, learners like me for California Bar, for SQ in Europe. And there are so many other things which are happening. And since everything is going global now, we are also looking forward to all this. And we hope to get all the mentorship possible from you.
This has been a great pleasure for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here.